Hi, it's story time. I was just having some water. It is so hot where I live today. Yeah, on Monday, which was Wednesday, yesterday was Tuesday, and then Monday, so 2 days ago, Tuesday, Monday, it was 96 degrees here in New York. I was so hot, and look at my dogs. You see Cookie sitting on the couch? She's panting too. I think I should encourage her to get some water. Cookie, do you want to go get some water? It's always there if you need it. Okay. Well, Ollie's at the bottom here. You see him? He's smiling and saying hello. Guys, will you help me say hello to our friends? Say hi there. It's really nice to have you back today. We always get together here in my house where I live on Mondays. Yeah, I like, wait, Wednesdays. I was talking about Monday, but it's Wednesday. That's so funny. We used to meet Fridays, but now we meet Wednesdays. So yeah, we're always here on Wednesdays at the same time when it is 1 o'clock in New York, which is always nap time for my dogs. Yeah, they've had a late breakfast, which is kind of like their lunch, and then they take a nap when it's time to read. And I'm so glad that you're here, whether you've had a nap today or not. Maybe this is your story time before your nap. Well, today's story, we're going to be talking about something called a protest today. You might have heard that word before. People are talking a lot about protesting uh, everywhere, it seems, these days. And this book here is a really interesting book. What I find really interesting about this book, and I don't want to give it away for you or anything, but this book doesn't have a lot of words. What this book is for me is it sparks a little bit of creativity and imagination and thought of, I wonder who these people are. Do you want to know the name of the story? It's called Enough. Like enough is enough. 20 protesters who changed, oh, it's shiny, who changed America. And it's written by Emily Easton. And it's illustrated by Ziyu Chen. And this is not as shiny. Oh, it's still pretty shiny. But you can see on here, this is an illustration of a famous event that happened. And that's what's going to be taking place in all of this story is 20 different people. We'll learn a little bit about them. But before we do, I need to get ready to read to you. So if you'd like to get ready to sit and listen and think, you might want to help your brain to turn on and focus. So sometimes I do that by stretching for a moment so my body feels good and ready. So I'll sit up nice and tall and I'll take a big breath so that when I breathe in, my belly even goes out a little. You probably can't see that, but I'll breathe in and then I do that 2 times with me. Helps calm down and get ready. Actually sends oxygen to your blood, which helps you feel calm too. Ready? Take a breath. One more. I feel good. I feel really ready. And I'm going to take my hands out to the side. I'm just going to walk them behind me like I'm reaching for Ollie. Hi, Ollie. And then I'm going to put my hands on the floor. I'm just going to look up really tall, make my neck really long like a giraffe, and roll my head like that. Really slowly, too, because I don't want it to be all cracky and hurt. Oh, I feel good now. And I'm ready. Hope you're ready, too. And if you're not, you can always pause it, come back later. So, enough. 20 protesters who changed America. So remember, we've been hearing about that word protest, and I think before we read the story, we should talk about what does that word actually mean. I hear it all the time. I see it on the news. I hear my friends talk about it, and I think we should just state what it means. So basically, to protest, it's just a demonstration, maybe something that you do, or an action you take, maybe like writing a letter or making a sign, or it's some kind of display. So if you made that sign, maybe you hang it in your window. Or an action you could take is you could take a walk. We call that marching. And it's when you do those things publicly to say that you disagree with something, right? So if I disagreed with something here in my neighborhood, we have parking 4 times a week. We have to move our car 4 times a week. And if I disagreed with that, I could do a protest, which might be me writing a letter or talking to my neighbors or hanging up signs that say, I don't like this rule. Sounds kind of silly, but it's an opinion I might have. And so maybe I'll protest about that. There's lots of reasons why people protest. And most of the people in this book are protesting to people in power, like the government, or these folks here protesting to the people who created the organization, the Olympic organization. They use that platform to protest injustice and inequality, which is when things are unequal among all races. And we'll learn about that too a little bit. But that's just what a protest is. Anyone can protest because everyone has an opinion and a belief. And the wonderful thing about living in the United States is that you are welcome to share and protest in a way that is not harming other people. It's peaceful, doesn't hurt anybody, and it won't get you in jail for it. You won't be in trouble for that sort of thing. You won't be in trouble by the government. Now, it's tricky because sometimes when we protest, people will be hurt, and there are consequences for speaking our mind. But the bottom line is, if you really believe in something, maybe someone is being harmed, or something is being wronged, or something is just off, and you want to speak up, it's important to know that no matter how old you are, and you'll see young children in here too, no matter how old you are, you have a right to voice your opinion and listen to people help you understand what is wrong. So here we go. Enough 20 protesters who changed America. And this is the stripes of the American flag. I don't see any stars, but it must be just part of this. I like these illustrations. So this is an author's note and a foreword. And this is it's a lot about why Emily had written this story. And this is just an interesting foreword. I don't think we'll have time for it today, but I think that the bottom line that Emily says here is there's no telling how our actions, the action that we take in protest, will impact this world, but we are determined to continue our efforts to protect other communities from the horrors that we face, things that happened in the past. We want to protect people. And anyone is able to join the fight. All you need is passion in your heart and a way to share it, which might be online or in a crowd with something as small as a crayon or a pen. Anyone can help bring change, and you can too. And that is written by Ryan. He sometimes authors will have another person do a word for them in the beginning before the story happens. So this is the first protest ever in the United States. Many years ago, hundreds of years ago, Samuel threw a tea party. We know this as the Boston Tea Party. They threw all the tea because they were being taxed on it. They threw it all away. They destroyed the merchandise, and that was illegal. But it changed the laws, and it changed America. Harriet led the way. Harriet Tubman. She led the way for many people who were enslaved to be free and escape the kidnappers. Susan cast her vote. Susan B. Anthony, she was fighting for women's right to vote. Back when women could not vote, like me. Woody sang a song for you and me. Woody Guthrie wrote, "Is this land made for you and me?" Is it really made for everybody? Is the United States for everyone or just for certain people? So Woody sang that song for us. Rosa kept her seat. And this is Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks in Alabama, she was not allowed to sit down in an area because of the color of her skin. And she said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to protest peacefully. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm going to stay in my seat. And then she started a revolution with many other bus protests taking place over 381 days after that. And Ruby, there's a child, Ruby Bridges, she went to school. And that's a tomato on the ground. Now, why would a child going to school make people so angry? See, these actually were the protesters here protesting this action that they didn't agree with. But even her action was a form of protest as well, because back in this time, she was the first girl to ever go to school with a race that was different from hers. Yeah. Ruby's still alive today. She's in her 60s. And she was the first girl to go into an all-white school, and she was black, and that was not allowed for everybody to go to school together. Rachel wrote a book back when women authors were not as common, and this was more revolutionary. The book was very important. Martin had a dream. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed that everybody could be together and respected and be given the same opportunities and the same assumptions of good faith. We would see each other as equals without bias or prejudice and racism and discrimination. He had a dream that we could overcome that. And I think we're still working toward that dream. I think I see people here protesting all along. And I see protesting people right now. Even right now in New York, as I'm reading you the story, there's people protesting for the same dreams that Martin had, for equality, things being equal, and the law being applied fairly to everyone, regardless of the color of their skin and the shade of it. So Caesar and Dolores said, no grapes. Cesar Chavez, they ran a huge strike that changed labor laws for many migrant workers and many people, farm workers. They're not giving us much information in the story, of course, but these are wonderful people that you could go back and take some notes and then learn about them as you study at home. Muhammad refused to fight. He's a boxer, Muhammad Ali. And he said, I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. And back in his time, there was a war going on, and he refused to go and fight that war. Tommy and John raised their fists. This is this picture. It's actually a different take on this picture. And these two actually were raising their fists because of the same thing, similar to what Dr. Martin Luther King did and what Rosa Parks did. They were raising their fists to draw awareness to unequal treatment of Black people around the world, specifically in the United States. You see, they're wearing their jerseys have USA on them, and actually this gentleman here gave him his gloves to wear to show solidarity, meaning I support this protest. It's peaceful. And unfortunately, they had their medals taken away because they were so brave to speak out. Protesting isn't easy or fun always, and people often don't like when you protest, but that's okay if it really is something you believe in and it's really meant to bring progress and to bring change and make sure that there's equal treatment of people. It's okay. It's okay if people don't like it as long as you're not harming them. And specifically here, they were harming no one. No one was hurt by their demonstration. Right here, this is a very famous singer from the Beatles, John Lennon, a famous artist, and Yoko Ono. John and Yoko stayed in bed. Stayed in bed for a week, protesting war, singing songs about peace. Gilbert sewed a rainbow. This is Gilbert who made the first rainbow flag, which We have a book. See back there? We have a book waiting for you to read about the first rainbow flag. Jazz wore a dress. Jazz was a child. And she said, I'm so happy to finally be allowed to wear a beautiful princess gown like other girls. Because Jazz knew in her heart she was a girl. And Colin, he's a football player, he took a knee. Got down on one knee every single time that the national anthem played as a way to be respectful and say, I am protesting the unequal treatment that my people face. And many people were not happy about this protest either. That's the thing most times, even back here in the beginning, most times no one's really happy about a protest. But it's still important because remember, these people changed America. And this year, America said, time's up. America is interesting here because this is a woman named America. It's actually her name. It's so great. And she and several other people got together to say, time is up. And they started a movement for the equal treatment of rights of all women, and protections for them too. In Parkland, which is a city in Florida, they demanded never again. And these are children who are in high school, and they organized a protest movement. Their demonstration was a walk. We call it a march. And every year, this march still takes place, and it's calling for safety in our schools and in our communities, and marching against violence. And what I really like about this book is it tells you all of the history about all 20 of these people, which is very interesting. No, we're getting a delivery. I hear it outside, and Cookie does too. And so she's warning me. There's someone outside. I don't know if they're dangerous. They're not dangerous. Cookie, there's no danger. I think you could relax, and maybe you could go get some water because you still look very hot. Well, if you do happen to pick up this book, you can read about all of these people and all of the different things they did and how their protests have changed America. And a lot of the protests, I think what's fascinating to me is some of the protests that happened, 60, 100 years ago. We're still protesting and supporting those protests and that mission and that the words that those people spoke and the actions that they took. We're still trying to work towards some of those goals to make the world a better place, to make it more fair and just and equal, where we're all treated equally, where we all have the same opportunities, and we're all protected the same way. And justice is given to us in the same way when someone harms us. I have a question though. I've had children ask me, but how can I protest? How can I do that? Well, that's a good question. First of all, you always have to talk with your parents about your ideas. You always have to talk with a grown-up that you trust and tell them how you're thinking and feeling and worried about and concerned, and ask them how they feel as well and share your thoughts. Sometimes you actually might think differently than your parents. I know I did when I was growing up, and that's okay. Be curious. Keep learning from people and listening to people around you when they tell you about their lives. And speak with your parents and ask them how they feel and what you can do together to help make the world a little bit safer and better. I think that a lot of my friends here in New York, I've seen a lot of my friends and their children doing walks together, marching. They'll carry a sign. It says, we believe in peace, we want equality or justice. That's a nice thing to do. I've also seen people with signs in their windows, rainbows that they draw, and saying we support each other. That's even a peaceful way to communicate. I really like that. Or if something, think about at your school. What would you do if you saw someone, one of your friends or one of your classmates, being bullied? You'd probably protest that. You'd probably speak up. Maybe you would go to the teacher. Maybe you would write a letter to the principal and you would say, this is happening. Maybe you'd even go directly to the source and you'd take action and say, enough is enough. That's a very important way to use your voice too. Speaking up for people who are harmed, speaking up for the environment, taking care of the environment, super important. So there's so many things that we can do, even if we're young or we're getting older or we've lived a very long life. There's always something that we can do to speak up and make the world a better place. Protests are not about hurting people or harming people. And if you see a protest starting to turn into that, to harm someone, it might not be the right way for you. It might not be the right way to bring change. So think about it. Think about the ways that you can speak up and help make the world a better place. So I hope you were inspired by this book. Enough is enough is where that word enough comes from. And hopefully you can learn more about the 20 people who were written about in this story. And it'll inspire you like it inspires me. Well, what time is it? Cookie, do you have a watch on? Cookie's not wearing a watch. My clock says it is 1:23 here in New York. So that means it's time for me to get some lunch. And before I do, take a little water. I'd like to say goodbye to you, and I'd like to say thanks. Thank you for coming here, listening, being so nice to my dogs, paying attention to the story and thinking, and being together. You always show up every week. It's so nice to have you. I'd like to give you a big hug if you would like it. So I'm going to reach my arms out towards you, and then I'm going to cross my elbows. I'm going to touch my opposite shoulders. Then I'm going to give you a big hug on 3. I'm going to give a big squeeze. Ready? 1, 2, 3, squeeze. Nice to feel like we're together in person. Maybe one day. Well, if you're going to take a nap, have a very nice rest. Have a very nice rest. You don't even have to sleep. You can just lay there until your body relaxes. That feels really good. Even if you're too old for a nap. I know how that goes. And if you're going to go have some food, enjoy your food. And I will see you next week here, same time, same place. Bye.